taking that up to Jake. That is an aluminum exhaust off my 3000 back when I had the turbo kit. That's actually on Jake's car now. And then we're trading exhaust. So he needed something that flowed better. So that's my task for today. Bunch of driving, coffee, good to go. Well, this is fun. So, got all kinds of stuff going. That's my reference that I put together for the wiring on this. Gray is what I already did. Yellow, I need to confirm. And that's what I'm working on. So, we stripped the harness the other day, or weeks ago really now. Got the relays going up there. So this one labeled injector is actually gonna power the whole, anything 12 volt in here. So injectors, coils, cam sensor, TPS sensor. I think the speed sensor gets that too. Need to confirm that. And then already started on this. So let's see this mess. We have everything, all the power going to here. And then I have the idle air control valve right here. There's 2 powers and then 4 whatever pulse width modulated deals, I think is how it's done. But regardless, it was really easy on the MS3. It is labeled. So it's 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B. And so you just put those together. TPS is done. That's pretty easy, just a shielded TPS in on here somewhere, hidden. Next is the injectors, because those are pretty easy too. And then the coils, easy, it's all labeled on the MS3 harness. I already have power to the coil, but my harness here, jumper harness, isn't labeled, so I gotta go through and unfortunately even like the black isn't ground, doesn't appear to be, so I'm gonna have to go through and just kind of trace and all of these and make sure I have like the right colors going through here and blah blah blah. So it's getting there though. I emailed the folks at MS3 Pro DIY Auto Tune. They're always really helpful, so I needed some help on the cam and crank output. I wasn't exactly sure how to wire that in. There's like a positive and negative CAN and CAM shielded signals, so getting some help on that. After that, it should be all right. I have in the interior, I found the speed sensor that drives the speedometer. It's a yellow with white stripe and it has little silver dots, and it's in the dash harness. So you just do a speed output. It's a pulse width modulated output from the MS3, and you just tap into that, and then you can adjust the signal, bang on the keyboard until the speed reads correctly to your like phone GPS or something. Still have to find the tachometer. That's a pretty easy output also. It's just one wire, and it's just literally tack out on the MS3 Pro. I just can't remember what color in the dash harness, so I have to find that. I think that's it. So it's a big task. Oh, all the 5-volt sensors I need to do. So that's coolant and air temp. But those are 2 wires. Not bad. Woo woo. It did fire up, but didn't run very well. So let's rewind a little bit though. All of this is hooked up, all of this. So I have all the individual injectors, all the individual coils. I had the TPS wrong. Buddy Garrett from Fuel Tech helped me fix that. So the TPS needs sensor ground, not chassis ground. And then same for the crank and cam sensor. They need sensor ground, not chassis ground. And then for MS3, they also need a pull-up resistor. So you put a 1K resistor between the power and the output. So it took me a little bit to reread all of my various references I was looking at. But that's all done now, and it did fire up, but it sounded like it was running on 1 or 2 cylinders, and yeah, it's pretty nasty. Most of them are wet and fouled. Oh, that's just dirt. So I'm gonna get new spark plugs, pull the injectors because these were used injectors, and clean those out, make sure they're good, and then also take a bunch of fuel out of the map. It was just a complete fire it up guess. And also be a good idea if I finish wiring the wideband O2 sensor. Probably smart. And then after that, it'd probably be a good idea to plug all the vacuum lines and have them ran where they're supposed to go. I just wanted to hear it run, and it does. Positive also, the alternator had did some research on that. There's 4 wires, and supposedly if you use, this is a 2G DSM alternator, the blue wire, it actually would typically go to the ground side of an alternator light on the dash. And so that's what actually, so the dash light would have power, and then that is ground, and that would actually trigger this to turn on and start charging. So instead of doing that, you can also just run a resistor in line to power, and then that'll mimic the a light. And so that's what this is. It's pretty ugly, but it'll wrap in here when I'm done. So that's just a 1K resistor. In line with that to, not just battery power, just in case it's not trying to do something silly all the time. So it's to ignition power, only on with the ignition. But fuel pump works, triggered by the ECU. Check the fans, those work. Everything's looking good. No fuel leaks in the lines that we made. And then the adapters, there's an adapter here to the fuel filter, and then to the, I keep pointing that fuel pressure regulator, to the rail. So all of that's good. Once this is all confirmed working, I have some harness wrap. It's cloth wrap. It's not as sticky as like electrical tape, so it doesn't make a big mess, but it looks like the black electrical tape, except it's cloth. And so I'll go through and wrap this all up real nice and tight. And most of it's ran. It looks messy, but it's actually kind of ran where these branch off. And same thing here, kind of zip tied to keep these together, so where they branch off. And yeah, it is messy, but wrap it in black and it won't look so bad. And if you stand back really far, looks fantastic. I set up some other cool stuff in the ECU. So in the MS3 has torque converter lockup control. So this is a 2G transmission and converter, so it does have a lockup torque converter. We're using a Force 4 shift box, so just manual up and down shifting when cruising around, but I wanted the torque converter lockup to work to get better gas mileage, keep trans temps down too for my son. And it's just one trigger wire to a relay, and then relay to power the solenoid. So that's hooked up, or it's not quite hooked up, but I have it set up in the parameters in the ECU. So that's pretty neat. And then I do need to wire the shift box.
I will also, the shift box has external buttons, which are just ground triggered up and down shift. So you have the box that has buttons on it up and down, and then you could do separate buttons on like a steering wheel. So what I'm going to do is actually have the MS3 Pro ECU trigger it only under wide open throttle. So if we're at the track racing, he won't have to worry about hitting the shift points perfectly. It's just going to do it, 7,000 RPM or whatever it is every single time. And one less thing to worry about. And then cruising around right now, he's going to have to just up and down shift. So that's okay. I think that covers it. I'll do another video when it's actually fired up. Yeah.
So that's open O2 housing. Still have some things to do. I don't actually have the wideband hooked up yet, so it's picked Ridge. But I just set the idle fuel based off of max amount of engine vacuum. I was been burping the coolant system, so got that going. I installed a 3000 GT alternator that I had on the shelf, so voltage is okay. There's some things I could do tricking it to go higher, so we'll see. It's not too bad though. That's about it. Oh, with bleeding out the power steering, bleeding out coolant, and gonna do an oil change too. So then at least the engine is good to go. Still have more wiring to do. That works though. Have transmission and neutral, by the way, on these W4A33s and FA33s. F4A33. If you don't have them in neutral, if it's a stock valve body and stuff, and you haven't put a Sonex selector in it, they don't circulate fluid in park, so you need to put them in neutral. If it's like a cold morning and you want to warm it up nicely before you take off in the morning too, good idea to put it in neutral. It'll pump the fluid through and get everything nice and warmed up first. Let's see. Yeah, still need to wire all that stuff, and wire the tach and speedo, but just little things at a time, getting there. I can say the wiring is now done. It's all wrapped up. Unfortunately, gonna have some excess there, but I don't really want to chop it off because just in case we add anything to the car. But I have everything done, cleaned up here. The only thing I really need to do in the engine bay yet is trans cooler. It's gonna go between the radiator and front mount, I think. And let me get the light for the inside. So car starts, runs, wideband works. I also have the forced 4 shift box wired up. Let me get some light. So turn the key on. That's this guy here. It starts off in 3rd gear. So there's 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and overdrive. And I also have, so there's the MS3 Pro. I have the MS3 Pro wired to the shift box, which it allows an input for up and down shift. So with an external button, maybe you want it on the steering wheel, which is there. And but it's just a ground signal to shift it up and down. So what I did was wired the MS3 Pro that above 7,000 RPM, and above like whatever 50% throttle, it upshifts. And then I also did it to downshift, so in case he stomps the gas in a high gear, and if it's below 4,000 RPM and above like 70% throttle, it's gonna downshift for him. The rest of it, cruising around, he's gonna have to cruise around and press it on his own. The other thing the MS3 has is the torque converter lockup. So this is a 2G DSM trans, which has a torque converter lockup. So that is this relay here. So it'll trigger this relay and lock up the torque converter. And there's multiple things that have to happen in order for that to lock up. And I have it set for like a 2-second delay. So everything has to be, all the parameters need to be met for 2 seconds, and then it will work. So I think I showed these already, but I have the wideband and I have the voltmeter. Still haven't done anything with the coolant. I may just wire a warning light for him. So if it goes above a set amount, I'll have the MS3 trigger a warning light. He doesn't need to look at the coolant temps otherwise, but that's about it. Oh, I put it's kind of solidly mounted now. I bolted the dash in better. I mean, it's chopped up pretty good for the cage, and got the glove box in, and requires a swift bang, but it's coming along. So next is mechanical items.
So I already mentioned the trans cooler. I also need to put the rear diff in, monkey around with some pieces of drive shaft, trying to put together something that works with what I have without taking it to the drive shaft place and have them do it. But it's only like 80 to 100 bucks. So if all else fails, that's what we'll do. But trying to do it for free. And front brake lines, and I think that's it. Put the bumper on, front turn signals, and then he can go drive it. So hopefully another weekend, because it's Sunday. Didn't accomplish as much as I'd like. And then all the remaining things, we can do in time. So we're gonna put the center console in, obviously the other seats, and he has a stereo to put in. I have a sub and amp for him too. So